Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us here today. It's Wednesday, a beautiful day outside in and around South Bend, Indiana. We call it Michiana if you're here in the area. You know, I don't say Michiana very much. Do you, Vince?
Never.
I've never really been a fan of the word, like, because you could literally, Michiana is a combination of Michigan and Indiana.
Correct.
Literally drive from the eastern part of the western part of the state to the eastern part of the state, and technically that would all be Michiana, but I think it's really just our area.
Yes.
With that, right?
Yeah, it's really weird. Personally, I don't like giving Michigan credit for anything. So the fact that it should be like Indiana, Indiana should be first. I don't know. I just made that up. I don't
really trip off the tongue.
It really doesn't. But no, Michiana has never been a thing for me. I don't, because it's really, it's like our area plus like the Niles, like maybe up to St. Joe, like that kind of area, I suppose, depending on how far south you want to go here in Indiana. But it's a made up thing by TV stations is what it is.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree, because they rely on it pretty heavily, like,
yes,
hey, Michiana, like, my name's not Michiana, talk to me, like,
right. We're Indiana, we're Hoosiers. It is what it is. There's a reason they discuss the Indiana high school football scores first. All right.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I am Tenzin. I am the son of Aang, in the YouTube chat says we don't call it Iliana or Indo either. Actually, there is part of the Illinois, Indiana, where I think they do call it Iliana.
Do they really?
Actually. Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
Used to know a guy who worked for a radio station in that little neck of the woods, and I believe they called it Iliana, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's just that one little patch. I don't know.
Iliana.
That's
a long stretch of area as well. I mean, where Illinois and Indiana.
Yeah, literally from north to south. It's like that's
like a 6-hour drive.
Yeah. All right. Well, today is Notre Dame football mailbag day on the show. We've just got Brian Driscoll's show must have just ended, because all of a sudden we got a rush of questions coming in mailbag in the YouTube chat. We've got a few from the Champions Lounge stacked up as well. Juicy Notre Dame football questions.
That's good.
Some other questions. Mark Avalone says, what did you think of Jerry Jones' cameo in Dr. Pepper Fansville ad? I haven't seen that.
No.
Is there one that I'm not aware of? I guess so. I haven't seen it yet. Have you?
Yeah, I have not seen that either. I haven't. Like, I think I've seen one Fansville for this year, and I'm sure, like, they always have like a theme kind of a deal going, and I don't know what that is yet for this year. So I'm still getting over all the Jerry Jones that I had to watch and listen to from that documentary.
During the Netflix series.
Yeah, but I learned a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I did learn a lot about the history and the takeover and the, Jimmy.
I thought he was more open in that than I thought he was going to be.
Really,
like, it wasn't like I still haven't seen the New England Patriots docu-series from a couple of years ago.
Okay,
that apparently Robert Kraft was behind, and it was very pro Robert Kraft and anti, tried to negate, the contributions of Bill Belichick and that kind of stuff. And I thought there might be some more of that. I felt like Jerry was pretty open and honest for the most part. So
I felt like there was a lot of honesty from all sides, I
mean, the most honest one, if we're being, just outright about it, was Michael Irvin. Like, that guy is not afraid of saying anything ever.
You're not kidding. Like,
I talk about the White House.
Oh my goodness. Like, everybody else didn't want to talk about the White House, and he's like, do you want to see the deed? Is basically what it sounded like. I mean, he was willing to talk about just about anything, man.
That's right.
I guess when you've danced with the devil, man, you could live to see it. Like,
he's fully aware of his demons.
Right. I mean, good. I give him credit. It's hard not to like Michael Irvin, I gotta say, even though
it is, even when he's dancing around on the sideline
at Miami
Hurricanes.
Yes.
That was a little painful, like
a little painful
watching Jimmy Johnson, crank the Hurricane thing, and then Michael Irvin doing his thing on the sidelines. Yeah, that was a little bit painful. All right, let's get to some questions here. from our folks in the YouTube chat. Brandon Plintzner, how concerned are you about the Cassius Howell versus Anthony Knapp matchup compared to how you felt last year when true freshman Anthony Knapp went out there against Texas A&M's defensive line? I think this is a really good question to start us off today.
No, it's a great question. And I think that we were all nervous about really the entire offensive line going into the A&M matchup last year because, we had no idea how the offensive line was going to play. And all we heard about was how good the defensive line from A&M was, right? And so we all were concerned about it. And it turned out to be, I think it's fair to say it was a stalemate. Last year, it's not like Notre Dame did whatever they wanted to on the ground and pass protection and, all of those different things. Like that's not what happened. But it was a stalemate, I would say. As far as this year is concerned, look, Anthony Knapp played very poorly in week 1. No debate. I also don't know that I've seen him play that poorly in the amount of time that he's been a starter at Notre Dame either.
Probably his worst game.
Yep. You know what I mean? So, am I concerned about this matchup? Of course. Yes, I'm concerned about it. But I also think Anthony Knapp is going to play better this week than he did 2 weeks ago. At least I hope so, because the Anthony Knapp we saw on Sunday was not the Anthony Knapp that we saw the majority of last year. Did he have his struggles? Yes, all of those different things. But I'm going off the noggin here, but I don't think he ever had a 12 rating in pass pro with Pro Football Focus. You know what I mean? So he played his worst game of his career. He's got to play better. He's got to play better. I don't think one guy is going to win or lose this game though either. So, there's that. But I'm concerned about the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern, but at the same time, I mean, isn't any defensive end worth his weight going to give you some concern no matter what? Because look, this came up yesterday. Somebody brought up Cassius Howell yesterday during the show. And yes, Cassius Howell is a good defensive end, but he's not projected like Nick Scorton last year and, a couple of those other guys to be high first round, first or second round NFL draft picks like Texas A&M had last year. So if the games were flipped and Texas A&M was the opener again this year, as opposed to Miami being the opener, I would say I don't have near the concern I've got with Anthony Knapp because he's got a year of experience. He played pretty well on the road against some really good guys. And, last year against Texas A&M, but there is at least a little bit more concern because of what we saw last week. Cassius Howell is a good defensive end, but there are going to be a lot of good defensive ends that Anthony Knapp as a left tackle, as long as he stays the left tackle, is going to have to go up against. And I don't think that Cassius Howell is that much better than anyone that Anthony Knapp is going to see the rest of the way. Like Texas, here's what's crazy. Like we went into last year's game talking about, the great Texas A&M defensive line, and they proved to be pretty good. Their offensive line was pretty good as well. But what's crazy is what we totally, and this is what happens, especially when the games are early in the season, you end up pushing aside all this stuff as the season goes on, and we're not paying attention to Texas A&M anymore after we paid attention to them all offseason. Their defensive line drastically underperformed last year, and they still had 2 guys picked in the first round of the NFL draft. Their line this year is not as good as last year's line in terms of overall both athleticism, power, explosiveness, all those kind of things. They're good. They're not as good as Miami's defensive line, I think. So if Notre Dame can just come out and be Notre Dame again, I think Anthony Knapp and I think everyone's going to be fine against these guys. Howell had 3 sacks in 3 consecutive plays against Utah State. Those are his only sacks through the first 2 games of the season. And that was against a vastly undermatched Utah State offensive line and left tackle. I think Anthony Knapp is better than Utah State's left tackle.
I agree wholeheartedly with that part. The whole line played terrible, so I anticipate the line is going to be better than they were on Sunday. Just law of averages that they're going to play better than they did. Like that's kind of where I'm at. And I know that's not great analysis or anything like that, but it's just, like I said, it's the law of averages. These are good players. they're just not going to have consecutive bad games back and forth, back to back to back.
Not that bad. Not
Right.
that. Just, again, I think that when this season is over with, the best defensive line Notre Dame will have faced was Sunday night, Labor Day weekend in Miami. Again, Texas A&M's defensive line is still going to be good. I'm not saying they are bad, but they are like, you just watch them. Like they really, for the kind of athletes they were facing against Texas A&M, as well as UTSA for that matter, the week before, they really just should have mauled and overpowered them throughout the game. You didn't see that. Like the greatest thing you saw from their defensive line was those 3 straight plays from Cassius Howe when he got those 3 sacks. Other than that, they were just a pretty good defensive line, I felt like.
Yeah. So, agreed. Yeah.
Another offensive line question from Sean Kelly in the YouTube chat. After the performance by the offensive line last week, do you think that showed how much Riley Leonard's ability to run made the offensive line look better than what we thought last year?
To a degree, but not overly. Again, Neil Wagner didn't play this poorly last year, as he did on Sunday. Anthony Knapp didn't play that poorly. Like, those guys didn't play that poorly. Like, even with Riley Leonard being mobile and all of those different things, they still weren't just letting guys loose the way they were letting guys loose last week. So, to a degree, sure. I think everybody was going to miss his athleticism and, escapability and all. No doubt. You're going to miss that. It's like you don't know what you have until it's gone kind of a thing. Absolutely. But I don't think that's all that it was, though. I really don't. And to be perfectly honest with you, where I come from, the ability I saw throwing the football kind of outweighs the ability to escape and run and all that kind of stuff. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
It's the kind of quarterback play that I want to see. So I think the pros outweighed the cons in that regard.
And I think it's interesting. And again, I know everyone has their, things about PFF and all that kind of stuff. But according to PFF, when CJ Carr was blitzed, he went 11 of 15 for 91 yards and a touchdown against Miami. He did really well, especially for a freshman in his first start on the road against the blitz. Under pressure, 5 of 8 for 100 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean,
kind of like that. Okay.
He did well. Well. Obviously the last series, that's completely different, I think, because it's like you're just pinning your ears back. You know what's coming. You know what Notre Dame has to do at that point.
That last series was abominable. I mean, it was terrible from the word go, and it had nothing to do with CJ Carr. There's nothing he could have done, about that. I mean, he had no time to throw the football. That was just bad. And look, tip your hat to Miami. They pinned their ears back and they just came because they knew what Notre Dame was going to want to do. Would Riley Leonard, this is completely a speculation, right? But would Riley Leonard have been able to drive the team down the field with 50 seconds to go or however much time was left? I can't even remember now. But would he have been able to drive the team down the field like that? I don't know. I don't know. So, but the 25 version didn't, and now they're 0-1. So is where we're at.
Thank you, Werewolf.
Yeah, man. That was clutch. I didn't realize. I've
had that on my phone. I haven't had reason to use it yet.
Oh,
it's like I'm always, finding little things, little nuggets and stuff like that.
Where is it? I don't think I've used this for the show yet since we've been on, right? The nugget bell.
There we go.
Bring it back. Got to bring it back.
Outbound, by the way, says, hope I'm talking about the regular season. I assume he's talking about Miami being the best defensive line Notre Dame will face. Yeah, I'm talking about games 1 through 12.
Right. That's all we can do because we don't know who they're going to face in the postseason.
Who's going to be, yeah. We have no idea what's going to happen in the postseason at this point. Obviously, you get back into the playoff, you're going to see some better defensive lines. But who knows? Miami's might turn out to be still one of the better ones they face all year.
Yeah, Mike has a great point. He goes, that last drive, no quarterback is driving the team down the field with how atrocious the pass blocking was. Agreed. But I think the comment was, would his escapability allow them to drive down the field or, that kind of a thing? Yeah. I still think that would have been tough. I really do. Especially with the amount of time that was left. And I believe they had no timeouts either.
And it's
So
not like Riley Leonard was just dodging rushers left and right every time he dropped back last year. It's not like he never had a clean pocket. He never had time. And he was always, he wasn't like Ian Book, honestly, ejecting from the pocket early because he faced a little pass rush and stuff like that. That's not the kind of stuff that was happening.
Right. That's
So
a little revisionist history there.
Yeah, did his elusiveness help him? Of course it did.
Sure.
Because that's the kind of quarterback that he is to begin with. And that was like, if you list Riley Leonard's strengths, running is the first thing, and then everything else comes after that.
Right.
So yeah, it was going to help to some extent. But, it's going to be really interesting to see just what strides everyone makes, but especially that offensive line against, again, what's going to be a good Texas A&M team. But at the lines of scrimmage, I don't think that these A&M lines are better than the Miami lines that Notre Dame faced. But Notre Dame still has to play better no matter what.
Yes.
Domer Grizz says, we'll all be watching the obvious signs of improvement this week, including better O-line play and a more aggressive defensive scheme. But what will be some less obvious signs we should look for that would convince you this team's going to be all right moving forward?
Some less obvious than the obvious ones that he put out there. So I want to see better play from the defensive tackles. It doesn't have to be – that has nothing to do with scheme. Marcus Freeman talks about it all the time, right? He talks about the fact that, can they get pressure with 4, and those kinds of things. Can they? That's a great question. If they can start getting pressure with 4, that changes some things, right? Can they get home with some of the linebacker blitzes that they were attempting to employ, last week and did not have a great, finishing percentage on those? I think that's going to be big. And then, as far as how the corners are lining up, that's going to be big to me. We talked about this the other day on the show on Monday, Sean. Like, you can run zone and still be up close to the wide receivers and taking away the short stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like them playing off man. I don't like them playing zone where they're giving 7-8 yards, that kind of a deal. I don't like that. This team is not built that way. So I don't care what scheme they're running. I want to see more aggressive play from the defense. And I know, again, that has nothing to do with scheme. I want to see more aggressive play from these guys. Play like you have been taught to play the last 3 years. Play how you instinctively want to play defense. That's what I want to see, because at that point, the Jimmies and Joes are bigger than the X's and O's, Sean. And that's just a fact in this regard. Notre Dame has a ton of talent. They just didn't play to it.
Yeah.
In the first game.
I think you used the word there at least once, and some of the players brought it up in their press conferences yesterday when they spoke with the media, and that's just aggressiveness. Like, the players acknowledged that they were not aggressive enough on either side of the ball. Now, to your point, like, playing that kind of defense, like you talked about, that was so soft and gave Miami's receivers so much cushion, like, that was just it was a passive approach to begin with and unwarranted. Are they going to make that adjustment? Other side of the ball, I think it's really simple, because like, we can talk about offensive line, we can talk about CJ Carr and the wide receivers and all this different stuff. Are you gonna give the best player on the field the ball more? Like, that's the biggest thing. We've talked about RPOs and and how CJ Carr has to make the decisions. Is he going to hand it? Is he going to pull it and pass and all that different stuff? You just need to give Jeremiah Love the football more. And that, I think, lets the offensive line establish a different kind of mentality early on. Like, that's where, like, offensive linemen want to come out and hit and move people off the line of scrimmage. They want to run the football in place of smash mouth. Like they should be better run blockers than pass blockers naturally. But once you are able to punch them in the mouth a little bit and put them on your heels, I think that's going to help your pass blocking as well. You do that by establishing Jeremiah Love as early as possible. And I'm not saying just, feed him the ball all day long, but you've got to get him the ball much more regularly early on. He needs to be much closer to 20 carries than the 10 carries that he had against Miami last week.
Agreed. Got to run the football. Got to establish the line of scrimmage. If UTSA can run on Texas A&M, then Notre Dame should be able to run on Texas A&M. Plain and simple.
He's Vince DeDario. I'm Sean Stiers. We've got Notre Dame football coming up this Saturday night. Notre Dame hosts Texas A&M at 7:30. You will hear the radio call right here on Sports Radio WSBT, home of the Notre Dame Radio Network in South Bend. We are the flagship station. You can also, of course, if you're out across the country, listen to them on the Odyssey app, AUDACY. Our game day coverage, though, starts at 3 o'clock Eastern time. And this season, the home game location for the game day crew, Vince, is the legendary Linebacker Lounge.
Wow.
That is where they will be starting at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Tim Crowell, Jimmy Rosari, Eric Hansen, Tyler Horka, as well as other great guests before every show. This week's guests include Frank Stams and Brian Flannery from the 88 National Championship team. So stay tuned for the all-new game day show before all Notre Dame games all season long, broadcasting live at the Linebacker, 3 o'clock Eastern time this week. We'll take a break and back with more Notre Dame football mailbag questions right after this. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com continues along with Vince DeDario. I'm Sean Stiers. We've got Notre Dame and Texas A&M coming up this Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff at Notre Dame Stadium. Home opener, long-awaited home opener is on the way. Can't wait for it, and it'll be here. It'll be here very soon.
Not soon enough because it's a night game, Sean.
True. Got that extra long wait.
Hate those night games, man.
We've got, I know.
Oof.
All right, it's Mailbag Day, so we're talking. We're answering Notre Dame football questions. A lot of offensive line questions today, Vince. A lot of offensive line.
Rightfully so. I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I just hope that we're not giving the same answer over and over again.
I know. Here's one from Joe that's not offensive line. Mike Denbrock hypothetically calls you and says you get to pick the play. What are you calling?
Oh, man. If he calls me
31 toss power sweep. 31 toss power sweep.
On one. Ready? It would be some sort of a shot. It would, because I'm not gonna lie. I want to see CJ show off his arm. I want to see him stretch the field. I'm hoping that they allow him to throw downfield a little bit more based on the success that he had against Miami. So I'm hoping that happens a little bit more. But yeah, I'm asking him to uncork it and chuck it deep like that. That's going to happen. So that's where I'm at. I know that's a silly fan answer, but I don't care.
I don't mind seeing that. I'd like something that, looks a little different. Maybe get Jeremiah Love to the outside, let him use his speed, but I wouldn't mind a shot downfield either. I just want to see something that frees up Love and gets him in the flow right away.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that is happening regardless. You've got to give him touches, whether it's handoffs, whether it's passes. I don't care. He has to be a central focus of this offense. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, open it up, baby. Open it up.
Beezer 12 washing beard in the YouTube chat. Should I even watch the game? The season is over. Apparently, I feel like that is just dripping with sarcasm.
Yes, that is. I took me a second. I was like, really? We're not going to – there's like 11 games to go minimum. Yes, you should watch the game, Beezer. No doubt about it. It should be a very, very good game, no matter how you look at it. So, yes, you should watch the game. If anything, looking for improvement in the places that we've been discussing. I mean, you want to cheer on Notre Dame? Come on, man.
And again, I'm not saying Texas A&M is slow, so don't take this. But I feel like from an overall athleticism, skill position, I think this is a really good matchup for Notre Dame. Very similar to last year. They've got some transfer portal guys like Casey Concepcion, as an example, the wide receiver. But I feel like should be an advantage for Notre Dame in this game. But it also should be a slugfest down in the trenches.
Look, people remember Notre Dame for winning the game last year, no doubt. And it was a great win on the road, all of those different things. But it was a slugfest, man. That first half, if you remember, Sean, that first half was rough. It was a black and blue, kind of a fight scenario, you know what I mean? And finally, they broke off the run. Jadarian Price broke off that run for the first touchdown of the game, but it took a minute to get that to happen. So I'm not saying it's going to necessarily be like that, but Texas A&M is going to bring it, and they're going to fight, and it's going to be a slugfest. I think Notre Dame should score better than they did in that game last year. Thought they were going to score more this year too against Miami. So there you go.
Nick, not with a question, but a comment. He says, if I don't see an angry and motivated team Saturday night, I'm going to be upset. It sounds like things we're hearing, like this team, they took it personally. This time it's personal. Like they took the Miami game. Like sounds like they've been pretty fired up for the past week plus.
I will steal a page from Brian's book in the post-game show. I wish it didn't take a loss to get these teams fired up every year.
I know.
That's the thing that ticks me off. Like, that's the next step for this program. Don't let a loss be the thing that, cauterizes the team and galvanizes everybody and pisses everybody off and, all that kind of stuff. And I guarantee you, Sean, Notre Dame goes out and wins this game, and then they win the next couple games. There's going to be a story that is released at some point where, oh, man, we walked into the Goog and that Miami game was playing on all the TVs just to remind them of what it felt like.
Played it over and over again. Yep.
Why? Why does that have to be a thing? Why can't they just win? But I digress. If that's what it takes, they run the table. Okay,
Ian Tenzin says they could have been angry and motivated to face Miami. Yes, they could have, but it didn't feel like they were, did it?
Yes, absolutely. They could have just watched, video of us being kicked out of every practice, after the first 5 periods, and that should have motivated them to be mad.
Back to the Champions Lounge. After A&M this weekend and not counting a pummeling of Southern Cal, what game are you looking forward to the most later in the season?
Well, NC State's offense looks pretty darn good. So that game kind of sticks out a little bit at this point. Obviously, a USC pummeling is always something to look forward to. But I think that NC State game is actually going to be a pretty decent game, it sounds like. So I'll say that one right now.
I'll just go to Syracuse because I understand what you're saying about the offense, but it's senior day and you've got the Angeli factor. Steve just had a really nice game against UConn last week. And, we get a little reunion with them, because really, looking once you get past the Southern Cal game, there's not a whole lot of juice out there, to squeeze on the rest of the schedule. So that's
that whole week leading up to Syracuse, we're going to be talking about a certain quarterback that's wearing orange now. And,
we will.
Not looking forward to that particular week.
I'm sure.
But based on the way he's played the first couple of weeks, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Irish BS. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you the Notre Dame offensive line will be able to provide enough time for C.J. Carr to establish a downfield passing threat?
Like a 7.5, which is not great, to be perfectly honest. That's like a C minus, C range. I think that they should be able to do that. I think that you could go max protection at times where, keeping a tight end in, or at least allowing a tight end to chip and then leaving the running back in to at least chip. There's different things that you can do. You can roll the pocket. You can get him outside. You can get him throwing on the run. I think we've seen that he can do that. So there's different things that you can do. So I am going to be the glass is half full guy and say that the offensive line kind of figures it out over the bye week.
And again, you establish a running game. I know this is very cliche, but you establish a running game and you've got 2 of the best running backs in the country. That helps the offensive line. You're not forced into situations where you have to, be able to throw all the time where you have to throw deep, so you can protect your quarterback that way as well, just by being able to run the football, establishing a running game, something that you should be able to do when you've got an offensive line like we think this offensive line is. And when you've got backs like Love and Price, that should be a given.
And that's going to be the bigger deal, is getting the run game going to open up the passing game, throw when you want to throw, that kind of stuff like that. To your point, that's what you want to do. And that slows down the pass rush. And so that doesn't put all the onus on the offensive line when everybody knows you're going to throw the ball. So establishing the run game is a big, big piece of that.
Yeah. And this question ties in with what Indy Forever 72, our confidence that we will see a much better pass protection and a more aggressive attacking defense. The defense is a little bit separate from that, obviously. But I am, if I'm going scale of 1 to 10, I've got about a confidence level of 7 in the pass protection. Do have to see some improvement. It is fairly head-scratching, some of the things that we saw last week. I don't know about the aggressive attacking defense. I don't know whose philosophy is going to win out in this whole thing. But Marcus Freeman did kind of say something to the effect at his press conference the other day of, when he was a new defensive coordinator and he came in, debut against Florida State, not everything went well. But, as the season goes on, you're figuring out what this team needs, not just your concepts, but how the concepts fit the personnel that you have. So if I'm kind of reading into that a little bit, maybe he's sort of redirecting the defensive approach a little bit. It just feels like with the kind of athletes they've got, particularly in that secondary, but the linebackers as well, that we should see a different kind of mentality this week.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping. We heard from a source, last week who was watching this game, who's very familiar with Chris Ash and kind of how his defense runs. He's like, that was a Chris Ash defense. Like that's what the defense that he runs. So a lot of the stuff that we heard, in the preseason and in the spring about how he's just coming in to run Notre Dame's defense and all that. After 1 week,
doesn't jive with that.
That seems like lip service. You know what I mean? So let's see what happens week 2. Again, it's one game. There's 11 more to go. Let's see where this goes in week 2.
Jake 8589 asks, do you believe that Micah Gilbert earned more playing time snaps with his performance against Miami?
No, I don't, because he plays the position of arguably the best wide receiver that Notre Dame has. And so I don't know that you're going to take one off the field to put another one on. You know what I mean? Now he'll be in the rotation just like he was. And, he played a decent chunk in this game, and he was effective when he was in. And so I think that will continue. I just don't see them taking Malachi Fields off the field in order to get Micah Gilbert on the field.
Yeah. Fields played 49 snaps last week. Malachi Gilbert played 12.
And I think that's probably about what it'll end up being. That's
right.
What approximately 2 series and a half, depending on what the series looks like.
Yeah,
I think that's accurate.
Fields needs to be out there as much as he was, because as you said, he's their best receiver, especially like at that spot, far and away. He's their best receiver. You saw the kind of catch that he made on that ball from CJ Carr, and that's the kind of stuff you could see at least a couple of those per game with him being out there. I don't think Micah Gilbert is quite at that level yet. Look, you're seeing Micah Gilbert more on the field just so far.
Right.
12 snaps is still more than what he was getting last year. So I think that, getting him out there, getting him some snaps is important, but I think that where they are right now, Fields needs to be the guy getting that many more than what Micah Gilbert was getting.
And it'll be a nice smooth transition, from next year from Fields to Gilbert. I think that's the plan. It's a succession plan, right? You get him involved, you get him, some touches, you do, all of those things so that next year he's getting the snaps that Fields was getting. And then the next guy behind him gets his snaps and so on and so forth.
Played Like a Champion has 1A, 1B, and 2. So really 3 questions. First, what perceived matchup advantages in A&M's favor will they try to exploit? I've got one off the top of my head. So I'll start if you need to think about it
hit it
a little bit. I think that they are going to try to duplicate what Miami was able to do with Malachi Toney with Casey Concepcion in this game. I think that they will try to go after Devontae Smith and or Carson Hobbs. I think that's going to be like when we're talking about snaps. Do we see less of Carson Hobbs, more of Devontae Smith? I thought that that would be a true advantage, or at least that was my matchup to watch in that game, was the Malachi Toney, because of the slot and the way Miami feeds the slot. Concepcion is probably Texas A&M's best receiver, and again, working him out of the slot, I think that is going to be the matchup to watch when A&M is on offense in terms of a one-on-one. Now, again, do you let Devontae Smith play more to his strength, which to me is physical, up, bump at the line of scrimmage, bump him off his route and that kind of thing. They obviously didn't let Devontae Smith do that in the Miami game against Malachi Toney. So that is the one specific one-on-one matchup, offense versus defense, that I think Texas A&M is going to try to capitalize on against the Irish.
Mine would be edge pressure from A&M's defense. I think they probably watched the film and they saw that Notre Dame's tackles struggled, and they want to attempt to take advantage of that and hope that happens 2 weeks in a row. So I think the edge pressure from A&M will be something that they attempt to exploit the way that Miami did.
Yeah, Justin Kane says Smith played better in coverage than Hobbs. I agree with that. I definitely.
Well, and they took advantage of Hobbs. Let's be honest.
I think that they've got to adjust that.
Yeah,
this week. I don't think you can have Hobbs out because Concepcion is a much more experienced receiver than Malachi Tony. Tony is very talented, but he's a true freshman. Concepcion is much more experienced, and I don't think that you need to be giving Hobbs as many snaps as he got. Smith is your better coverage guy, and he needs to be on Concepcion much more this week.
I mean, let's be honest. They looked at it as, hey, when 21's in the game, let's go there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's what good offenses do. That's what good offensive coordinators do. They took advantage of a weak link, and it worked. But here's the other piece of it that nobody seems to want to talk about. You know, a couple of those plays where Hobbs got burned. Guess who else got burned? But the ball didn't go that direction. Leonard Moore. Like that whip route that they ran it on both sides, and both corners got whipped on that whip route. Like, it was ugly. Bet could have gone to either guy, and it would have been a huge play. So, you know, and then the touchdown, the amazing catch, Leonard Moore bid on a double move. Mm-hmm. You know, so let's not throw all the shade on Hobbs. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying in general.
Oh, I hear you.
Let's not throw all the shade on Hobbs. Leonard Moore, the All-American, didn't look great either. So everybody needs to pick up their game. But I also agree he can't be on the field as much as he was. I don't disagree with that.
So question 1B, what perceived matchup advantages in Notre Dame's favor will they try to exploit?
Look, I still think Notre Dame thinks, because we're talking about perceived, right? This is what Notre Dame perceives. They perceive they've got a good offensive line and a great running game. And what I've seen from Texas A&M so far, their run defense isn't very good.
They're vulnerable. Yeah.
That's a perceived win for Notre Dame. They're going to run the ball, and I think they're going to run the ball often. And then they'll take shots with play action, but I think it all revolves around the run game. And honestly, if I'm Notre Dame's coaching staff, I'm thinking the exact same thing.
See, and again, I feel like that was I don't want to get stuck on Miami, but I feel like it was a missed opportunity for Notre Dame against Miami, because I think in isolation, Love and Price were head and shoulders better than Miami's linebackers, and Notre Dame didn't force the issue and make Miami's linebackers have to make enough plays. I think that was a real missed opportunity in that game, and that's one that you've got to capitalize. Again, I think athletically, Miami, I'm not saying that Texas A&M doesn't have athletes, but I think athletically, Miami is a couple steps ahead of what Texas A&M is going to be.
I think that's fair. That's a fair assessment of the situation. Yeah, agreed.
So the last one from Played Like a Champion. What should Notre Dame do the first 3 quarters to maximize the team's chances of prevailing in a close game in the fourth quarter? Please answer on both sides of the ball.
Run the ball offensively.
And stop the run?
Yeah, run the ball and stop the run.
Literally, it's as simple as that.
It sounds so elementary, right? It sounds so elementary, but the reason it's elementary is because it works, okay? You have to run the ball and you have to stop the run. If you do both of those things, you'll win the game. And I don't think it'll be that close.
A quarterback like Marcel Reed, you have to put him in as many third and long situations as possible, because you're giving yourself much more margin for error, because he's going to break out of the pocket at some point. You know, so like on the occasions that he does, you have to you can't, just make it, okay, 3rd and 5, where all he's got to do is break a tackle and, luck his way into a first down. Put him in as many 3rd and long situations as possible. Make him have to complete more passes downfield, and I don't think he's going to be able to, because I don't think he's accurate enough to. He's a great athlete, but, you've got to put him in as many 3rd and longs as possible. Stop them on 1st and 2nd down. And again, it's like, it seems like very simple stuff, but that's what it comes down to me. Stopping them on 1st and 2nd down, i.e. usually the run, and then establishing the run game offensively. You've just got to be able to.
Yep.
That's who Notre Dame is. That's their identity. You've got 100%. To be able to do that. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we will wrap up some mailbag here in hour number 1. A lot of stuff still coming in hour 2 with rapid fire. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. He's Vince DeDario. I'm Sean Stiers. Got a few minutes left in the mailbag. We want to try to zip through some here, Vince.
Ooh, a little pre-rapid fire. Let's do it.
Pre-rapid fire.
Yeah.
All right.
I like it.
Here we go. Stephen B. says, I simply cannot understand playing a 270-pound nose tackle. Explain Donnie Heinisch to me.
He's a good player. He's an athletic player. He can do a lot of things if you're running the right scheme with him, but if you're expecting him to two-gap, it's not going to work. So you have to play him correctly.
Yeah, I mean, he feels more like a 3 technique to me because of his body size, but he is playing nose guard. And as of right, I think that is the next step in the evolution of the program is body types that more aptly match some of those positions. But yeah. Where did it go? Joseph Barrett, what is the alternative for Anthony Knapp at left tackle?
There isn't one. I believe Styles Prescott is the backup tackle, right?
I mean, that's
the reality.
The answer, like is Styles Prescott. That's it.
I mean,
were you more impressed with Styles Prescott and his opportunity than you were with Anthony Knapp?
Like, I do find it rather puzzling that Will Black is a true freshman. He's been playing guard since he stepped on campus, and everybody's like, start him this week against A&M.
Right?
Like, he's never practiced the position at the collegiate level.
But start him there.
Like, can we at least bathe in reality every now and again? You know what I mean? Like, if he was playing tackle the whole time and he was the backup and all of those different things, cool. Like, I'm good with it. Let's do it. But to move him from another position that he hasn't played ever in college, I'm gonna go ahead and pass on that one.
Yep, that's the alternative right now. So, from Irish English, let's talk about something other than Notre Dame's left tackle.
Let's do it.
Buy one, sell one, hold one.
Ooh.
3 yards in a cloud of dust. Prevent defense, a quarterback with a jersey number in the 30s. So I will buy the quarterback with a jersey number in the 30s. I will sell the prevent defense, and I will hold on the 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
I'm with you 1,000%, even though it makes me want to throw up having quarterbacks with the wrong numbers on. That's the most palatable of these three. I'm okay with the 3 yards in a cloud of dust, to be perfectly honest with you, because that's what everybody's screaming for. They want to run the football. Well, that's what that is. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you guys all want. So, but that would be my second one. And then I can't stand what's the only thing that prevent defense? It prevents you from winning. That's it.
That's right.
Hate it.
Go ND. I'm not sure if same starting line 6-7, new left tackle 8. So are we saying who is the 8th guy? Is that?
I have no idea.
Okay. So it's not.
Hopefully, it's not like one of the kids, like 6-7. Have you heard that? You don't have a teenager living in your house.
Yeah, I've heard that's the thing. Like the 6-7, like it's kind of replaced mid.
I guess I don't know. It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Yeah. Coleman Smith.
Wow.
Predictions for both basketball teams this year. I'll say they'll both make the NCAA tournament.
Is that it?
As good as I can do.
You're not willing to go any further?
Yeah. My head can only go so far with basketball right now. Swimming with a lot of football.
That's fair. The rosters will be so different for both teams, I think, in what we see on the court on a regular basis, that I'm not willing to make any predictions either. Men are counting on some freshmen this year to make some waves, and the women are counting on a new roster. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Coleman Smith wants to know what I thought about Jalen Daniels in the Mizzou game. I mean, I thought he had an okay game. It could have, you hold on to the ball a little bit better. It's a different outcome. There was a safety in there. There was another fumble, just in general, he was okay, but wasn't enough. Their defense is a bigger concern than Jalen Daniels. He's all right, but man, that defense really struggled. And then ND Forever 72 asks how I can let my Kansas boys let that arrogant self-serving Drinkwitz beat them. We'll actually have a Eli Drinkwitz question coming up in rapid fire in a little bit pertaining to that Missouri game. And Sean Kelly wants to know my ceiling for the Cowboys this season. I mean, 10 wins, make the playoffs. I think that's kind of where I'm sitting on them. You know, like they played very well against the Eagles. Almost well enough to beat them if CD holds on to a couple passes. But, you know, they played toe-to-toe.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they're a playoff team. Do they advance in the playoffs? Probably not. That's kind of where I am on their ceiling. I am Tenzin says 0-17 is the ceiling. Obviously, he loves the Cowboys.
Ouch. Wow.
Rapid fire in hour number 2. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com coming up. We are here. It's hour number 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com, and that can mean only one thing, Vince.
Rapid fire, baby.
There it is. I didn't even have to say it.
I'm locked in. Locked and
loaded. Here we go.
Yeah,
Notre Dame running back DeDario Price was asked this week about his fumble in the Miami game. Here's what Price said, quote, "As a running back, you can't let the ball touch the ground. That's a non-negotiable across all levels of football. Can't let it touch the ground, and I have to do a better job of that. Shake it off, go on to the next play, go on to the next week. I have a chance to come back and do better things this week. The message all week long, no matter who we play, is protect the football. Whether that's on offense, defense, or special teams, all three phases, we want to protect the football because the football is the program. Doesn't matter who the coach is. They're all relaying the message. Take care of the ball, but especially the running backs coach is telling you, hey, it's part of the game, but just do better." End quote. Vince, that says blank to you.
It says that he takes accountability for his actions, which I appreciate. It says that he knows that this is a program standard, and I suppose it's why he didn't play after he fumbled the ball. I still think it's a terrible decision, but it explains it. And the thing that I actually found interesting in this, and you tell me if I'm crazy, which you have no problem doing. He never mentioned his running back coach's name. Like, it was he's like, that's what the running back coach says. Like, I don't know. It just seemed weird to me.
Well,
am I crazy?
I guess I didn't really see that. I didn't think anything of it, because I'm sure that both of his running back coaches have harped on the same thing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Maybe that was in his head, whether it's J1 Sider now or Dylan McCullough before him. But I agree with what he says, man. Like the football is the program. And I think that might even be a Dylan McCullough line. I don't know if it comes from the head coach on down, but the football is the program. I know that we, heard that line when Dylan McCullough was here. So Bobby O'Shea says, you are crazy, but you won't say Angeli's name. Touche. Vincent Bobby. But, I love the accountability that he's taking, and he obviously knows what the standard is. The standard is the standard, and you've got to protect the football as a running back. And, I get it. A lot of people were frustrated, and my thinking, after the game was the same thing. Why didn't they go back to DeDario Price? But at that moment, like in the immediate moments after the game, I had kind of forgotten about it was him that fumbled, and CJ Carr had to dive on it, to save his butt and all that kind of stuff. So if that's the standard, you have to stick with the standard. I think that's why we saw a little bit of Aeneas Williams, even though Williams had a little bit of an elbow injury. That's why we saw him after that, because of the fact that Price had to get his mind right, but he knows where his mind needed to be. He knows what the standard is, and now you hope that that teaches him a lesson. We don't see him put the ball on the ground anymore this year, because he's not someone that we're accustomed to seeing ball on the ground.
Bobby D. Armand would be happy.
He would.
Mm-hmm.
Your guy.
I know. He coaches wide receivers now, by the way.
I was going to ask you what position group he coaches now.
Yep, wide receivers over at the old Penn High School.
Yep.
It's weird seeing him in the gold and black. I'm not going to lie.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
It's odd. I always forget that he's on the staff. Like, I go down after the game and I'm talking to some people. Oh, hey, what's up, Bobby? It's just weird. Just weird.
Here's what Notre Dame secondary coach Mike Mickens had to say this week about the Texas A&M receivers his group will face this weekend. Quote, "I mean, they have a good receiving core. Obviously, they're doing a good job. Fast guys. We've seen KC Concepcion, obviously, at NC State. So good players. It's going to be a great challenge, and that's what we love." End quote. That is blank, Vince.
That is very Holtzian to me. Just pumping up the opposition no matter what is what that feels like. Look, I'm not saying that the Texas A&M wide receivers don't have talent, because they do, but I think he's propping them up a little higher than maybe they should be.
See, and this is kind of like that first sentence. I mean, they have a good receiving core. I wish I had the audio on this.
Right.
I just have the the transcript, but it feels like he was like, it's almost like, well, I'm heaping too much praise on him. And then he corrected himself.
Gotta dial it down.
Tap it down a little bit. But I mean, you're obviously going to heap the praise, but that's what it felt like to me. Like maybe, like, am I going too far saying they're great? Like, are you going to think less of me if I say they're great? Because they're really just, they're good. Now, he wasn't saying 6-7 or anything like that, but
I mean, look, they are good. They're good. They're a Division I, receiving core. They're good. Notre Dame's defenders are better. Again, I need some things called a little differently, and I need some then lined up a little bit differently and things like that. But just on paper, talent-wise, Notre Dame's better, and they should show it in this game.
See, and that's the key in this matchup is if they let Notre Dame's secondary be Notre Dame's secondary, I don't have any doubt about this matchup because, like, last year I felt like athletically Notre Dame matched up better against Texas A&M's receivers. It played out that way. Now, again, like Concepcion, they didn't have last year. They brought in some transfers, just like Miami. But you just let Notre Dame be Notre Dame, I think they're going to be fine. That's the key.
And, again, to steal words from Sean Stiers, I don't want to harp on the Miami game, but if the defense would have just been the defense, they would have won that game.
Yeah.
Period. And, even with all the other issues, even with the defensive line not playing as well as they did, even with the offensive line playing like garbage, all of those different things, not giving the ball to Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, and if the defense just played aggressive football, they win that game. So
completely agree. Fill in the blank. Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko comparing Fighting Irish running backs Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price to former Georgia backs Sony Michel and Nick Chubb is blank.
High praise. I mean, that is some high praise. Like, I think the duo is talented enough to be in that conversation? Sure. But they haven't had an opportunity to show it just yet. So you can talk about the potential of the duo to be those guys, but they're not there yet. So, but that's high praise. That I don't think there's probably much more higher praise that you can get from a 1-2 punch in college football that people remember.
No, that's exactly right. And Mike Elko, obviously, I think he went to Sony Michel and Nick Chubb because his one season as defensive coordinator at Notre Dame was in 2017 when they played against Georgia here at Notre Dame Stadium, and Sony Michel and Nick Chubb were in the backfield. So it's like he's looking at them, and then he looks at these guys, and it's like that's kind of who I draw a line to. And it is very high praise. And like you look at a guy like Michel, who won a couple of Super Bowls, and Nick Chubb, who I believe is still ticking in the NFL right now. It's crazy how fast the lifespan of a running back goes in the NFL. But that was probably like in the time that we've been doing this, following Notre Dame, covering Notre Dame, that's probably, other than Lendale White and Reggie Bush back in that, like 2005 range when Pete Carroll was still doing his thing, that Michel Chubb backfield is probably the best backfield that we have seen since then. Like, it comes down to those two. So that is very high praise. And that's exactly what, we think of this Notre Dame backfield that they have right now of Price and Love. But it's also why it's so frustrating why we never really saw that come to more fruition against Miami, establishing a running game.
Sad. But yes, I agree. I trust Mike Elko, from a defensive mind, and he looks at a lot of offenses, and so I do trust his evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously coaching in the SEC, and he's coached against some other good ones in the ACC before that as well. He's been around a little bit, so great praise. Now it's time for Notre Dame to let those two guys live up to that, I think.
Agreed.
Fill in the blank. Missouri head coach Eli Drinkwitz starting his post-game press conference by calling out a student reporter for picking Kansas to beat his Tigers is blank.
It's just low class. I mean, you're calling out a student. Like a student, first of all, never call out the media. That's ridiculous. That
In
is
general.
yes,
Right.
that's just a general rule as a coach. Don't call out the media. First of all, you're not supposed to be paying attention to the media because that's what you always tell people is that, oh, I don't pay attention to what everybody. Clearly you do. And you're reading the student newspaper,
Well,
dude.
apparently this was on like a radio show or a podcast, like some kind of pregame show. So it happened before the game. So, like, if Eli Drinkwitz is actually listening to or watching that before the game, I have questions about that.
Yeah.
But even if he's not, that means someone on his staff was listening and told him about it. And, like, do you really need those kind of rabbit ears? Like, you need to know who's picking you and who's picking against you. Like, even if this is some kind of joke, which I think that he was probably trying to, have fun with it. But
Brian Kelly's sense of humor.
He let off his press conference.
Yeah.
It's just amateur hour.
Super amateur hour and super lowbrow and all of those things. I lost some respect for him in that regard. Even if he would have called out a regular media member, like an adult who does this for a living and like feeds his family, that's one thing. And I still would give him a hard time for that. But you did it to a student, like who's doing this for nothing.
Right.
Like a credit, maybe,
Exactly.
Like, that is so low class.
Yeah. Like apparently the student responded with something along the lines of journalistic, standards or something like that, which I agree with. It's like, he wasn't just going along and making the pick because he happened to be a student at the University of Missouri. He was actually making a pick that his head was telling him to pick, and so like, and Drinkwitz was something about, oh, what a horrible take. I can't believe you had that take. And it's not a take, it's a prediction, actually, and this Missouri, again, I'm a Kansas guy. Missouri actually has a really good journalism school. There are at least a couple guys I think on the beat here who graduated from the University of Missouri. So like they're teaching them. So as this kid said, some good journalistic ethics and standards by not just rubber stamping a pick because he happens to be a student there.
And look, here's the other piece of it, in my opinion, is if it was a staffer or an assistant coach or a communications director or whoever gave him that information, whether it was prior to the game or after the game, they don't do that unless he's looking for that information.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not just volunteering that.
It seems very odd that the head coach of a Power 4, like in the SEC, a Power 4 football program wants that information. Who picked against us? Who picked us? Before he goes to the podium, and that's what he leads off the press conference with.
Unbelievable.
I know. It's very, very bizarre. Very bizarre. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, more rapid fire. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire continue. Along with Vince DeDario, I'm Sean Stiers. We were talking about the Eli Drinkwitz calling out a student reporter after the Missouri win over Kansas Saturday. Go Irish Nate says that's why the media keeps saying stupid bleep, because no one calls them out. Zero repercussions. I'm not sure. Can you hear that, Vince?
I can. I don't know where that's coming from.
Honestly, it sounds like it's coming from you.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if it's you or it's coming out of the computer. Anyway, so it must be you because you just muted your mic and now it's not doing it.
Oh, well, it's still doing it for me.
Interesting. Vince's phone is blowing up. Maybe I don't know. There are aliens. Something.
It's a good call. I did put my phone next to the mic, and maybe it was.
Now it's not doing it now.
I put it over here.
Okay,
I put it to the other side. Maybe that's what it is.
Kinetic energy coming out of the phone there,
man.
So if I'm reading Go Irish Nate right, he's saying that he wants coaches to call out the media so that media stops saying stupid stuff. Is that what you want coaches to do at press conferences now?
Apparently, and that's the worst idea possible because you don't want your coach with the rabbit ears listening to media. You want him to coach your football team.
Right.
Period.
Exactly. Now he references Ryan Clark, and we talked about the Ryan Clark stuff, that happened on ESPN with Peter Schrager. We talked about that a little bit on yesterday's show. And I mean, I don't consider Ryan Clark. I mean, technically he works for a media company. He's a hot taker / analyst on ESPN. He's different than.
What did he say?
He and Peter Schrager were talking. It was the day after the Cowboys-Eagles game. And they were talking about A.J. Brown for the Eagles and C.D. Lamb for the Cowboys and who had the better game. And essentially Ryan Clark pulled the "you weren't a player, so you don't know" card. So
that's
oldest card in the book. Yeah.
Sorry. That's a hard pass for me on the "you weren't a player, so you don't know." That's the worst argument that you can give on whatever topic that you're having.
Yeah.
That's terrible. That's just not good.
Exactly. And there's, again, like historically bad take, but Go Irish Nate is doubling down. He says, yes, especially when reporters ask stupid questions.
Hey, man, you are more than welcome.
You want a combative. I mean, you had Brian Kelly.
What are you looking for?
He would do that from time to time.
Yes, that's true. Because there's always a lot of people that think that the questions that the local media ask Freeman are like softball questions and nobody asks good questions and all of these different things. I just want to ask those people, like, what are you going to gain by asking whatever question that you think should be asked? Because the coach, if he doesn't want to answer it, isn't going to. He'll dance around the question and answer it the way he wants to answer it. And then people don't understand that reporters have like stories to write and they have angles of which they're trying to write said stories. And so they ask questions based on those stories that they want to write. They're not all looking for hot takes from the head coach on why something happened or didn't happen.
Right.
Like that's how media works. And I don't think people quite understand that. And that kind of annoys me a little bit.
Right.
And any one of these people can quit their job and become a reporter. I'm sure that they would love to do that. And you can ask all the tough questions and see how that goes.
Go Irish Nate. Getting on my good side. He says,
wow.
Sean, good question. Thank you very much, sir.
I'll tell you what, though, in the chat, people do give you specific props for the Marcus Freeman weekly press conference.
Do they really?
Yes, they do. I'm sure it's fans of IB, and that's awesome, too. But it's like, people are like, nobody's asking tough questions. And somebody goes, Sean Stiers will. So there you go. Yeah. You are the standard.
Got him on my side. I appreciate that.
Friggin' love it.
There's some days where it's like, oh man, what am I going to ask? It's like,
I get it.
I have an idea. I appreciate that because sometimes when they're coming out of my mouth, they don't always seem the best either. So,
well, you didn't ask a Shane Gillis question, so
that's true.
You won that one.
Although I've seen multiple Shane Gillis stories this week since then. I don't know if you've seen. Notice that.
I'm going against my own comment. That question was asked for an angle on a story.
Yep. So ESPN has renewed PTI for another 3 years, meaning co-host Tony Kornheiser will be 80 years old at the end of this latest extension, which is 2028, I believe. Where do you rank PTI, Vince, in terms of its influence on the sports media landscape?
So I think it was one of the first TV, sports talk, debate shows that I remember, to be perfectly honest, because there was sports reporters, which I always found dry and not very entertaining. And then you had PTI. And PTI was very entertaining because it was only a half hour. They had the little clock, so they had to talk about things fast. And I always found it to be very entertaining. Now, I haven't watched it in a very, very long time, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
But I used to watch it all the time back in the day before, while I had ESPN, but I didn't have all these other outlet podcasts and all these other things.
That makes it hard to watch if you don't have ESPN, even though now they've got the, ESPN app with all the programming there if you wanted to spend $30 a month to get it.
That's true. But no, I think that they were the groundbreakers. They were the ones that kind of started off and launched the whole thing. And so I give them a lot of credit. And frankly, surprised that they're still around.
I know they're still going strong. They like Kornheiser and Wilbon. They'll take some time off and they'll have some fill-in guests and all that kind of stuff. But it's, it's like it started out because these two guys used to work at the Washington Post together, and they would sit there, I guess, in the newsroom and argue about different sports topics. And someone knew them, and they were like, "We need to put this on TV," And like to your point about like I do still like I'll go home tonight, and while I'm editing the podcast and putting it up, I'll have PTI. I've got PTI. I've got it set on my DVR. It records every night, so I'll go home and I'll watch it and I'll see what they've got to say about a lot of different things. I'll put this up here in just a minute. I'm going to star this so we don't lose it and see who we can get in trouble. But in terms of the influence, I like it has had because like the sidebar where it's got the list of topics, almost every show now on TV does something like that. And obviously it spawned around the horn because remember reality was Stat Boy before he was doing that because Max Kellerman was the first host of that show. But like everyone puts the topics, almost everyone puts the topics on, screen now. And that started with PTI. So if you just look at that influence, I mean, that is basically everywhere now. And like you probably remember this, but just in case you don't, here's a refresher. Like back when I was on a different radio station here in the market, a station that doesn't exist now, it was the South Bend ESPN radio affiliate. Before we had a daily talk show, we were doing like I was trying to come up with some inexpensive idea to get a show on the air. Basically, like it was me, and then what can I do where we really don't have to pay somebody to do a show with me?
Wait, I'll call Vince.
Yeah. Well, it was before that. We were doing a weekly show. We called it South Bend PTI. So it was like a total ripoff. And so it was, like we ran through a bunch of topics in like 30 minutes. But then after we had the daily talk show, we had a segment at the end of the show that we called Finish Strong. And it was a list of topics. And so what used to be Finish Strong is now Rapid Fire. So like 25 years later, 24, whatever it is. I mean, this segment, this Rapid Fire that we're doing is a direct ripoff from PTI. It's a list of topics that we go through. And like, so it has, at least had an influence here in the South Bend market and, an Irish breakdown because it, like this is where the list of topics came from, influenced by PTI. So thank you, Kornheiser. Thank you, Wilbon, for that. I think it's had just like even like the First Take and all these hot take shows, like it's different but the same. Like I think that it all came like, and you can probably go back to sports talk radio before that, but I think that most of it has all spawned from the influence that PTI had with like two talking heads going back and forth arguing about different sports topics. And I think it is still the best version of it with those two guys. Kornheiser and Wilbon.
Yeah, they have not deviated from the original plan, really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same. It is the same show now that it was back then, which is actually kind of impressive, to be perfectly honest with you. They run the same exact show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I mean, Kornheiser, like he doesn't look like a guy who's getting close to 80 to me.
Agreed.
Honestly. I don't think there's been a lot of slip up from him over the years.
I agree.
He did his show from his attic for a long time after the pandemic. Mark, though, says, sounds like Vince secretly wants a clock limit on Brian.
You might want to replace Vince with Trevor, because he's the one that does shows with Brian every day. I'm not. True. That's not my my lot in life these days. It's not summertime, so not that's that Trevor ever said that. By the way, I'm not trying to throw Trevor under the bus. I'm just saying I'm not doing shows with Brian right now.
Indy Forever in the YouTube chat says Sean did that show in his basement like Wayne's World. If only, like back then we didn't know that you could, do stuff remotely.
That was not an option.
I know.
I was driving to the West Side to do shows with you in the radio studio.
That's right.
A
lot better technology today. I wish we had the technology back then that we've got now. We would have been doing some of that stuff. Okay, Michigan head coach Sharon Moore begins his 2-game suspension this week from the sign stealing, his part in the sign stealing scandal. It'll be when the Wolverines host Central Michigan. It'll continue next week against Nebraska. Do you buy or sell? Moore should have had to sit Michigan's first 2 games against New Mexico and Oklahoma instead.
Hold on, I want to make sure I say this right. So is it a buy if I agree that it should be games 1 and 2, or is it a sell?
Yes, it's a buy if you think he should have had to just sit the first 2 games of the season.
That's a huge buy for me. Why do you get to pick and choose what games that you get suspended from? That's ridiculous. It should have been the very next 2 games that you have to participate in. Why? That makes no sense to me. And would the outcome, Sean, have been any different if he sat the first 2 games than it was with him being there? I don't think so. So why was it not the first 2 games? I really don't understand that.
I do think it's very odd. Like you get to, like you said, you get to pick the 2 games. And we're going to go games 3 and 4 instead of games 1 and 2. And by the way, game 2 happens to be at Oklahoma. Now, I will say this. So, like, I'm buying that it probably should have just been the first 2 games of the season rather than you get to coach 2 games and then sit for 2 games. But I do like the fact that they don't – and Moore – did he play at Oklahoma? Or I think he either played at Oklahoma or he used to coach at Oklahoma. So I think that they were trying to allow him that, like he
even more of a reason to be suspended for that game. Make it hurt a little bit more.
That's true. I do like the fact that they don't have the excuse that, well, Moore wasn't coaching in that game, so like you lost that game either way. You know what I mean?
That is 100% fair. Yeah, no, you're right about that part. But if you get suspended from let's say I get suspended from work or whatever, I don't get to go to my boss and be like, hey, so those 2 days that I have to be suspended with pay or whatever,
right?
Can I make it like the next Tuesday and Wednesday? Because, I've got some important meetings I got to do, tomorrow. Like,
exactly.
It just makes no sense to me. I don't get it.
Yeah. Michael says, I'm a firm believer if you know you're suspending your coach for the next season, it should be the automatic first games, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera. It doesn't matter who you play.
Exactly.
Make it at the very beginning.
100%.
Got to come with a consequence.
And I wonder how suspended he is. Like, is he allowed to be in the building? Is he allowed to be at practice? Is he,
Apparently, the suspension actually begins with the game this week. So he is allowed to coach all this week. But obviously, not the game. But I believe that it is then next week he is not allowed to actually coach the team.
So really, it's like a week long. It's like a week-long ban, essentially.
That's a week-long, beginning with the game
by 2
itself.
games. Week. Right.
Right.
That's not even like a full 2 weeks. Typical Michigan.
I agree. I slipped this one in from Coleman Smith. He had this in the the mailbag, and I didn't see it back here. He says this weekend will be bigger for 2027 recruiting than USC week. USC at home is usually the big weekend every 2 years. So do you think that this weekend will be bigger for Notre Dame's 2027 recruiting than the USC game? Big list. Have you seen the list of recruits coming in this weekend?
I've seen a lot of people tweeting about the fact that they'll be here and all that kind of stuff. And I do think it's going to be a big deal. I do not see it being a bigger deal than USC, especially, we're still waiting on the outcome of that negotiation on the extension of the series. But, if it's another month, then they're going to go into the USC game thinking it's going to be the last one for a long time. So I just think that game is going to be absolutely massive.
I do too. I think the atmosphere for that USC game is going to be through the roof. So I'm sure I would say that one. But Driscoll is actually going to be here on Friday, and we're going to preview. We're going to take a look at some of the big recruits, what it means and all that kind of stuff on Friday's show. So we'll do that. He's going to be on the show every Friday before Notre Dame home games to kind of preview what the visitor list looks like and all those kind of things. So
look, this is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But USC is a night game as well. So the schedule is going to be the same as far as what they do during the day. They'll have a cookout and they'll have the tour and they'll have all of those things. And, to be capped off by a crazy night atmosphere, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I've seen a lot of people that are ticked off and they're like trying to sell their tickets to the Texas A&M game and all that.
Like they're mad because of the loss?
Yes, yes, 100%.
Wow, they're jumping off the bandwagon that quickly, huh?
Yep, I've seen a lot of people doing that, and I think the vigor will be back by the time you get to mid-October. And I think the atmosphere will be even better for the USC game than it will be for the A&M game.
ND Forever 72 says Sharon Moore played at 0U for Stoops, then transferred to Louisville. He's from Derby, Kansas. Oh, didn't realize that.
Well, he's a Kansas man.
Yeah, Derby's down by Wichita, kind of that vicinity. So, okay. Interesting. I didn't realize that. We will take our final timeout. Back to wrap up Rapid Fire, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down rapid fire in Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com with Vince DeDario. I am Sean Stiers. We got a few topics to go here. Vince, Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer, Florida's Billy Napier, and Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy are already walking on thin ice this year. Rank those three in the order of who has the best chance to make it through the rest of this season.
So did a little research on this one, Sean, thanks to you and sending me the questions ahead of time. I checked buyouts, to be perfectly honest with you, because that kind of hits to the realism of a potential firing. My number 3 candidate here, who I think is least likely to get canned, is Kalen DeBoer. Number 1, I don't think he's been given enough time. This is only year 2 for him. But because it's only year 2, he has a $70 million buyout. $70 million.
That's insane.
That's
that's a big amount to begin with.
Yes.
And then when you factor in like how taxed, like all these donors are being asked for NIL money and, everything else right now. And with everything else that they're doing, so $70 million, that is just a massive, massive buyout. If you're going to get rid of the head coach in year 2.
It's 90% of his remaining contract is what it is, which is just mind-boggling that he's going to get even more than that if he sticks around. So,
but I just will say, and I agree with you. I think that he is like, in terms of these three, like he has the best chance to make it through, probably because of that, and also because he is in the shortest tenure of the three. But I just feel like when you watch Oklahoma right now, compared to like from everything that you see and hear about Kalen DeBoer and his coaching style, it almost couldn't be more polar opposite than Nick Saban.
No doubt.
In terms of like the control, the discipline, all those things. It is a much more lax environment. And I think that is a big part of why Alabama is still having, or, is now having the issues that it has under Kalen DeBoer.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I don't think that Kalen DeBoer is the answer at Alabama, at least not from what I've seen. So I think eventually he's going to get the axe. I just don't think it's going to be this year.
Yeah.
I just think it's too financially, because not only are you paying $70 million, but then you're going to have to give some new guy a bunch of money too, So I just don't see that being the case. So he's by far my number 3. It's like there's a chasm after 1 and 2, and then you get to 3.
Okay.
For me in this list. So the question is it Billy Napier or is it Gundy at 1 and 2? And for me, I think that Mike Gundy, he's an alum. They're terrible. Don't get me wrong. The team is terrible. I mean, they got absolutely boat raced by Oregon this past weekend. And I feel like there's Division II teams that could have been more competitive with Oregon than, his team was. It's just bad. It's just really, really bad. I know he's on the hot seat. I just feel like he's got a little bit more leeway because of his status, because he's been there that long. His buyout's about $15 million, which is nothing to sneeze at. But I feel like I'm going to put him in the number 2 slot because I think he's got just a little bit more street cred at the school than my number 1 candidate, which is Billy Napier. Billy Napier, I mean, you saw the chants on social media and like he was on the hot seat going into the season. The embarrassing loss.
But so was Gundy. There were questions about whether you bring Gundy back.
I know. I'm just saying, like, Gundy lost to Oregon. Napier lost to South Florida. Like, it's a big difference. And it was at home. Like, it's not working with Napier. It's $20 million buyout. I see that happening. I think he's going to be gone here soon.
Yeah, see, I mean, $20 million, obviously not nearly as much as
still
70, but I feel like as crazy as this may, I guess the difference is the schedule that Napier has to play and the fact that the losses could come rather quickly here, starting with LSU this weekend. I think that is like in my mind though, like it feels like, because there were some who wanted to see Gundy go last year. I mean, I realize there was a lot who wanted to see Napier go last year, but he ultimately saved that job as well. I'm going back and forth on them. Maybe Oklahoma State, because the schedule is a little bit more forgiving, allows Gundy to get through it. So you're probably right. Like, because like Napier loses a couple more games in this stretch, which he's probably going to do. He's probably gone. Now, Michael Cannon, talking about buyouts, is saying, I know Texas A&M did it with Jimbo Fisher. The difference is you have a lot of rich oil alums at Texas A&M who have deeper pockets, who are willing to pool that money and were willing to get rid of Jimbo Fisher. And I'm not saying there aren't any rich Alabama alums, but that oil money in Texas, that was how that decision was ultimately made down there.
No doubt. Look, it's only year 2 for DeBoer. Like, are things trending in the right direction? Probably not, but it's still year 2. So that's where I'm at with him.
Yeah. Sean Kelly, real quickly, asked best pregame bar in town, the Backer. Probably so. Vince and I don't really pregame bar.
The parking lot is the best place to go.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, seriously, you're going to get all kinds of free alcohol and free food, and everybody's going to be in a good mood. So that's where you want to go.
Marcus Freeman has a Zoom call tomorrow. We'll hear some of his comments in the first part of the show. Jesse will be in with Whiteboard Part 2. We'll take a look at Notre Dame's defense, and then, of course, more rapid fire as well. That's on tomorrow's show. Vince, enjoyed it as always. I will talk to you later, sir.
Yes, sir. See you Friday.
All righty. For Vince DeDario, Sean Stiers, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.